Hello, everybody. Welcome to CONSERVATISH episode 206. My name is Peter Feliciano. You're welcome. I know you finally got to see my face after 2 weeks of no CONSERVATISH, but you should be watching Red Flag Lovecast out right now with me and Mike Harlow with special guest Ariel Scarcella. So go watch that. But I'm glad to be back. Make sure you follow, make sure you like and rate and review and leave a comment because it helps me. Go follow me on Instagram at Peter_Feliciano. And support my music and my podcast at patreon.com/conservatish. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to introduce Freedom Fighters International. Yay! Thank you so much for
Yeah, finally we got to make this happen. Sorry, I've been kind of hard to reach for a little bit, so.
It's okay. Texas was standing in our way, but finally it's out of the way.
Yes, exactly. We just got back from San Antonio yesterday. It was a totally different world. I mean, San Antonio really stole my heart. I've been to Texas before. It was, I don't know, maybe it's because of in light of what's been going on, but I went to like a line dancing place, and I legit was crying because it's been so long since I've just seen people dance and look normal and dancing without. I saw maybe one or two masks there, but I mean it is still clearly in Texas. We still I would call it COVID cult is still alive and well even there, and we see a lot of the propaganda as well, so it's everywhere.
Right. Before we get too deep into it, where can people find you?
So I'm on Instagram, Freedom Fighters International, but I'm heavily shadow banned. So if you put in Freedom Fighters, my backup account will come up first. But it's not until you get to the very end of the international that you have to type in the L for me to pop up. And so it'll be a profile photo of one of the stickers somebody designed for me. It's of a mama bear. So kind of people have been nicknaming me that, even though I'm not a mom. But
well, still, neither was Wendy, and that was the same thing. Remember Peter Pan? She was wasn't she Den Mother or something like that? I don't know. It's been a long time watching Disney stuff.
Following so much.
And then on that is also a bunch of links that people can on your Instagram, they can go and support you. And
well, yeah. So I'm doing a lot of, before this video went viral, I was sort of more known as the sticker girl. I've been working on things that are to fight against the propaganda, and I'm a big believer that the war will be won. Oops, are we?
You're good.
I think I paused for a second. I strongly believe that this war that we're in, and I do believe it's a war, I think it will be won offline. It's a psychological war. So a lot of this has to be about taking back the narrative. My background is actually in documentary film and television. I was in Asia for 5 years, sort of taking a little bit of a break, you could say. I was learning Chinese. I was also working on another project on education. So I was actually also working as a teacher for a little while, and I still do a little bit of online teaching. But my actual bread and butter for for most of my adult life has been in documentary film and television. So I feel that I'm very aware that this is seeing the narrative and comparing it to the facts, it just doesn't line up. So that's sort of when I kind of went deep into this path. So.
Right. Have you always been, I'm interested, have you always been rebellious, or were you originally an authoritarian, or, did you?
Was I ever like a white supremacist? Was there saying I am for a little bit? No, I'm not white, not at all. I'm full on Asian. I'm half Japanese, half Chinese. What was the original question?
I guess my question is was there a red pill moment, or were you always kind of rebellious?
I mean, rebellious. I mean, I'm so I think if you ask my family, they think I'm rebellious. I'm definitely the black sheep of the family. But I thought I was actually quite, I think I was actually pretty good. But this is what I say a lot. This is the big difference. I've been actually a lot of these issues that are coming onto the surface are questions that I've dealt with my entire life, being half Japanese, half Chinese. As a Chinese descendant, my Chinese side of the family, it's expected that you sacrifice your individuality for your family. And so when I, disobeyed, that was considered extremely rebellious. And when with my Japanese side of the family, it's more about sacrificing your individuality for the good of society. That's why Japan runs very, very smoothly, very well. People are, in lockstep, right? So even if within the language of Japanese, there's what we call keigo, which is the polite form, which Korea also has. So it's embedded in the language that there's this hierarchy within the society, and you have to kind of obey that particular structure. And as an American, it's, as you know, it's all about the individual. And I've, for a very long time, really, I struggled, because it's a beautiful thing when you sacrifice your individuality for your family and for your society. I mean, that's why it was, we, as patriots, we're so indebted to our veterans, right? Because of the tremendous sacrifice that they put on. They sacrifice so much. They're not just their lives, but their families' lives, for the betterment of this experiment, this idea of the freedom of the individual. And through many, many years of toiling with that question, I realized America I believe, is correct. That's the genius of Western thought, that nobody can coerce you to sacrifice your individuality for your family, for your friends, or for society. And of course, it's admirable and it's a beautiful thing. But the key thing is that it has to be a responsibility and a burden that you want to take on yourself. And that's the major difference, I think, between those three cultures.
Right.
So I
And
don't know
back
if
in
that
the
answers
day,
your question, but
no, it does. No, it does. And I sometimes talk about this. I visited China back in 2015, and I had that similar. It was only for a week, but I saw that same thing where it was like, and I didn't see it overtly explained, and maybe there was messaging that you got growing up that was overt, but for me, I did see like everybody's kind of like submissive, like everyone's just kind of like everybody's kind and generous and blah blah blah, but everyone's just like, I am happy to be a dishwasher, I am happy to be a cog in the clock, I'm proud to be just another soldier. And there's something admirable in that. I agree with you, especially in service of, right? And we don't want to get so individualistic that now we all have to bend to the will of, a very small minority, hi trans people. But but that should be lauded, and I believe you're right. It should be a moral thing that this would be great if you feel called to XYZ, rather than when you were growing up. Was it overtly explained to you that that's what as far as China, your Chinese side, was it overtly explained to you, the messaging?
well, so even though I am Chinese, I was born in Taiwan, and I lived there for the first time, just right before the pandemic. So I feel like more recently I got to understand Chinese culture a little bit more. I got to understand why my parents, or my mother, I'm sorry, who's the Chinese one, is the way she is. I realized it's actually, her tendencies are, I thought she was unique in the way she thought, but I realized, oh, this is very common in the culture. I grew up more between Tokyo and New York City. So yeah, I mean, it's tough, because I have parents who are very, very different. Like, they think, even though I look like I'm just Asian, my parents gave me very different messaging growing up. They, I mean, like, the Japanese and Chinese do not really get along. So I always felt like, I'm also a product of a divorced family. So the good thing about that was, every time I made a decision, it was only one parent who would be extremely against it. And it was always like one, when I did something that I wanted to do, my mom wanted me to be in real estate. So when I was sort of inching towards that path, my dad was like, "What are you doing? That's not something that seems like you, right? And so, and then when I was doing what I wanted to do, my mom was like, "What about money? What about your status and all this stuff?" And and I think like growing up with these conflicting messages, I realized like I'm gonna have to do me, and I think that took me a long time to get there because of my programming. I think as because ultimately on both sides of my family, they do come from like Japanese and Chinese alike. They tend to be more submissive. They tend to be more, like they tend to like, uh, they respect the hierarchy, and of course the hierarchy is there for a reason, and there's a lot of good things about it as well as negative things, but it's a really it's again a very tough battle that I had to go through in my entire life. And so when I see what's happening to today, and I understand why people can't see it. It took me a long time to see it. And I was raised on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. I went to these very elite schools, and the very schools that I'm now appalled by. It's just completely scary when I see the alumni newsletters. This complete indoctrination, and it is a brainwashing. Is how I see it. And I was that too. I grew up very both of my parents. So what's interesting is my parents right now, they're both big Biden supporters. They're very liberal. Which what was great about that was they were very encouraging. They said, I was never one. There are Asian families out there that say like, I want you to marry like only a Chinese person or only a Japanese person. My parents were like, I don't care if you marry black, white, blue, female. I don't care. You do you, which I think was a very in a way it was a very positive message. So I was shocked when as I came out as someone who was like not good, I don't believe in getting vaccinated, who was not a Biden supporter. Both my parents, for very different reasons, really shunned my decision and thought I was going crazy. My mother said, you understand that you're not white, right? Like, why would you go that path? And then my father my mom thinks China's great. And even though she was raised in Taiwan, she's very, she's like, now it's time for China to shine. Now it's time for the Chinese people to be respected, like things like I think is kind of racist. And my dad is someone who says China's dangerous. Like, so it's again like even though they're Asian, they have a very different viewpoint as liberals, right? But I'm definitely the black sheep. Like I haven't really talked. I spent a lot of time trying to red pill, as we would say, them. But I think now is the time where we have to stop messing with the sheep, and we have to awaken the sleeping giant. We have to awaken the lions. And I think that's why people, and that moment where I kind of got really upset and tore the stuff down. I think that was a culmination of like all these emotions that just sort of just came out in that form. And I was kind of surprised. And I'm with a bunch of other freedom fighters. We've been doing this since, like the dead of winter of like, we were 2020, like January 2020. We've been doing this for a long time, and we were really seen as crazies. And I was wearing the mask because I did not want to be in front of the camera whatsoever. I did not want to be affiliated with any of that. But with your community is so important. And my boyfriend, he's way more courageous than I ever he was out there just proud, like a proud conservative. And I was like, I don't know if I could do that, and so it's a slow process. I spend a lot of time playing along as well. But then there's a moment where it's gone too far. It's really gone too far. And now the children are on the line, and it kills me. Like I don't I don't know what to do now with the children. And so it's just now, if it's not clear, we are in a war. It's a psychological war. So it's different from the wars that we've seen in the past where we pick up arms and stuff like that. Maybe it will come to that. But right now we are at war. And those people who say there's nothing I can do, and I was one of those people, spent a lot of time sharing links and all that stuff and felt like I wasn't going anywhere. Well, now it's time to move to I think, to the offline arena. The war will be won offline, and that's why I think people are really gravitating towards these stickers, because it's a creative way to take control of the narrative.
Right. Yeah. That old saying that politics is downstream from culture. Right.
Mm.
I think it's that same thing. And even though Biden won the election, I believe that he lost the culture war. And
Yes.
when I look around on the internet, I don't see any. I see maybe 2 or 3 black people, liberals who are like, "Yay, Biden!" I see a huge flowering of black, gay, trans, Asian, whatever that speaking out against this dude on TikTok is huge. As
Well,
much as he wants to, smush that down, and so what I'm, just like you're saying with the stickers, bringing the message past the gatekeepers and just using a completely different avenue is the way to do it. And the other way, I think, is to squeeze them in their white guilt. And I talk about identity politics a lot because I think it is Satan. Last year, when George Floyd was, when all that happened, and everybody I saw a ton of very smart, kind, conscientious white liberals saying some dumb shit like, white people don't get to have a say about Black Lives Matter. But just listen to black people. And I was like, okay, you're telling an entire, and you're smart. You're the ones who I would trust, who are the accessible liberals. You're not the crazy leftists. You're the accessible liberals, and you're saying this off the wall shit. So I went and got every single black. I was just, what about that black person? What about that black person? Here's all this. I'm shoving it down their fucking mouths. And the only way to help white liberals wake up, I think, a little bit, is to help them realize that they are the racist ones.
well, that's the hypocrisy. And that's why, actually, you were talking about culture. I feel we have to really grasp, like, they have monopolized so much of Hollywood and the ad agencies and all that, right? And so we need to, that's why we recently, my boyfriend and I produced a music video, the Let's Go Brandon by Bryson Gray, which is, no cursing, right? It's a hot beat, and it's, us freedom fighters, like, kind of representing that there, and because, like, so maybe I should go back a little bit. The day I ripped those things down, I saw a woman on Fifth Avenue, and she was having a conversation, clearly in distress, about am I allowed to say the V? Can I say anything I want on this?
Please.
Okay. Because I get censored. So she was talking clearly about the vaccine and how she has a medical condition where she just can't get it, and she was clearly distressed. And I had flyers in my backpack. So I said, hey, you should come to one of our rallies. And she just collapsed crying in my arms, saying, I thought I was alone. And in a city like New York City, so many of us feel so alone. And when we are outside with a bullhorn, like, yelling that you are not alone, do not be scared. There are other people out here that think like I was just a minute ago on a train, and I saw this guy with a mask on his chin, and he was reading Breitbart, right? And I said, hey, you should just ditch the mask. And he goes, I know, right? And I said, like, and I just, like, hey, you should come to one of our rallies. And just that small invite, even like as small of a gesture that is, it reminds us that we're not alone. Like, and that's what the stickers make people feel too. So we have to be in control of the culture. The Let's Go Brandon is like a crazy like, I didn't even realize how big of a phenomenon that was. And in Texas, like, I see billboards of it. All of that is just so, like, it just shows that we are, like, it makes people feel that they're not alone. Right. And in New York, I think when I was in Texas, I realized, wow, people in Texas, or people outside of New York and California, don't understand what we're going through. Like, they don't understand that, like, I'm afraid sometimes to leave my house because I just don't want, like, it's 24 hours, 7 days a week. Like, you cannot leave the house where you're not completely reminded of this pandemic. And a real pandemic doesn't need a 24/7, like, advertising is not needed for a real pandemic, as one of the stickers would say, right? So that's the and just even the physical, like, and I was shocked on, as again, like on the flip side, when I was in Texas, where people weren't wearing that, and and it was shocking to me, my reaction, like my own reaction, where I was so touched, and so, like, I had, constantly was having I felt like an emotional breakdown, just because I could see people's faces.
Right.
And the psychological damage of children, as somebody who had to spend a lot of time learning 3 languages. I'm not saying I speak any of those 3 languages well, but I spent a lot of time learning languages, and to be unable to see the mouth, it makes it impossible, So, and that's just language, but the emotional and psychological ramifications of this is I can't even, ages 2 to 4. If you don't learn how to socialize, that's it. Though that they say that that's the only window of time where you could learn the social interaction to a point where you can actually become like a well-adjusted adult. And so what are the kids who are ages 2 to 4, who don't remember a life prior to COVID? I mean, I know it's only 2 years of our lives, and I mean, I'm in my 30s, so it doesn't seem like that long. But for children, it's criminal, and they're the most resilient to COVID, and they're the most, they are the ones who are going to be losing out the largest with this vaccine. So I'm extremely, extremely scared for the children. That's, to me, like, I don't even know. Like, it gives me like nightmares. Like, it haunts me, should I say.
Right. And being in New York, I'm in the Upper West Side, and I have that same experience where, I've talked about different vibes of different cities, right? The vibe here.
Yeah.
And I don't feel it when I go on the subway without a mask. I've never had anyone say anything,
Okay, that's interesting, because what I realized as an Asian person, I've gotten more, because we do come from a culture where it's more submissive. I feel people and it's, again, it's subconscious, but I noticed that I got more, shit for not wearing the mask and not wearing it properly, even when I was wearing the mask, than my friends who were Black. My friends and I've had people say flat out racist things to me, and nobody stands up. But if God forbid anyone says, like, I heard somebody say the N-word on the street, and I called 911 because I said, I'm afraid that this person's going to get killed saying things like that, right? So it's a different, like, again, what you were saying before about this is actually highlighting the racism that's embedded within the liberals, within the people that spent 4 years hating Trump. And look, I don't care who, and I'm not saying like I'm always playing devil's advocate as someone who has been a journalist, a teacher, and I think anyone who's in the religious field as a pastor or whatnot, I think it's really important to stay as neutral as possible. And so it was actually very difficult for me to come out as an activist, because as a journalist and as an educator, I really felt like I shouldn't be taking sides. But then when you're seeing literally people in, like, just injustice, and it's a different type of injustice that we're used to historically, but it is injustice that's happening towards the vaccinated group, I cannot help but I'm just so compelled to say something and to do something.
Right. I think part of what it is, and I say it flippantly, but I really believe maybe white liberals are the devil. But listen, they're the gas in the tank. You can call it what it is. 20 years ago, I would have been saying the same shit about Christian conservatives who wanted to bulldoze Ice-T records. Okay.
Right. Yeah. Sure.
Right. Anybody who
it's not about the side. It's about how you treat people, like individuals.
The reason why you get more shit than me is not just, I don't think it's necessarily because the Asians are submissive or culturally. I'm not saying that that's not true. I think white people, because it's really only white people who call people out. Like, it's only white liberals who would say, "Excuse me, you should be wearing a mask." I'm a dork. But when they want to be Karens, it comes up against their white guilt.
Right.
Only if you're Black or if you look racially ambiguous. Right. I'm half Puerto Rican, half German. people think that they don't know what I am, but they know like maybe if I start whatever. But to you, it's culturally fine to be racist if you're
Well,
if
like,
right.
I don't like using the race card ever, but we did a sit-in, and you couldn't hear, even though I was live streaming it, they muted it. But one of my kind of favorite moments was there was this white male Karen who was like coming out, like, saying how ridiculous we were for like we were like yelling like we want some beans and guacamole, whatever. And then this guy was like being super, like talking down to us. And all I said was like, you as a white man should be really be careful. You should really be careful of what you say, saying things like that. And he just like that moment where his brain kind of just goes like, and obviously it has nothing. I don't care that he's white, but like it's that he doesn't know how to process like,
Yes.
as a person of color saying be careful, as a white man saying things to an Asian woman, and he just doesn't know how to process it. And look, like the good thing I find about like what I'm really proud of as an Asian person is that I like my parents never let me play the victim card, right? Like right now we have like, I think it's actually a great injustice where you have these Ivy League colleges are saying you as an Asians have to now score much higher, right? And like I play devil's advocate with that too, like I had a friend who went to UPenn engineering school, and she was like, it was ridiculous. Like I never spoke in English. Everyone was speaking either Chinese or Korean, right? Like it didn't feel like I was even in America, right? And so of course you want diversity. You don't want to like study so hard in whatever learning English and then come to America and just realize you're just in Asia again, right? So I get in a certain diversity to a certain extent, but then but then the Asian mindset is like, okay, you have to get like, let's just say like I know this is not the case, but like you have to do twice as well as your American, your other, your counterpart, right? Whether, black, white, right? Asians have to test higher. Well, don't make it any excuses and be twice as good. Like that's the Asian mindset, and it could be kind of abusive, but it's also kind of empowering, just like that. It's this hard work ethic that they have. And I mean, it's also kind of fading away. I mean, I won't like, because of China, there's the one child policy. They put all the eggs in one basket, and there's a lot of spoiled and, narcissistic behavior also in Asia. I'm not to say that doesn't exist, but how I was raised personally, it's being hard work is, don't make excuses, just work hard. I think I have my parents to thank for that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I will absolutely play the race card to keep my foot in the door if I need it. I didn't want to, if it's the only way to make these white liberals short circuit, danger, Will Robinson, if it's the only way to keep my foot in the door of the conversation. Because last year, what was it? Well, I disagree with you. You wouldn't get it because you're white. Yeah. I'm like, okay, well, I'm not white. Now what? Now what? And they just, but it is interesting, by the way. I've been getting more traction on my Instagram. I'm getting more followers and stuff. Thanks, everybody. But I have noticed that, again, the ratio is there, that the only people who have ever called me Nazi or who have ever called me a Nazi are white boys.
And actually, I will even add to that, like the attacks, a lot of them come from men. Like I've been getting attacked a lot by the men. I mean, of course there's, but then I'm surprised. This is a whole other conversation about what happened to, like, has the feminist movement demasculated the men? I'm seeing this like kind of reversal. Like even living in New York, I feel like I've become more and more masculine, and a lot of the men I feel have been feminized. Like in this movement, it's mostly women, and it's like I go back to like let's empower the lions, like forget about the sheep. And I'm not saying men are lions and women are sheep or anything like that. Of course, like women have been super like powerful, and they've been like, I've just like when I see, even just, it's crazy because I'm in a situation where like my best friends now are the people I look up to the most in the world. It's like, of course we joke around and we're always making fun of each other, but I wouldn't want to hang out with anybody else on this planet than these freedom fighters.
I,
They
right.
so admirable, like so like I just look up to them so much. Like I never would have thought that I would be included with in a group of such badasses. I mean, it's great. It's like as much as, you know, as terrifying the situation is and just like I mean, and people don't see it. So like, but the people who can see it, like this is horrifying. Like this is they're building an invisible cage. And then that's why the children coming in, they don't even realize the cage is there. And a lot of even the adults don't even realize that this cage is being built. But I physically got to see it when I was in China. So I know it's there. I know like IBM was the people who track and trace the Jews, same people behind the Excelsior Pass. I mean, it's so frightening what's happening. But then at the same time, like, you know, like I just said, like I cried when I saw these people line dancing, and it's like it seems so silly, but it makes you appreciate all these little moments in life. You know, I you know, when I was like in sixth grade, when I left New York City for the first time, when I moved to Japan, I moved to Tokyo, and I fell in, and I didn't appreciate America until I left it, right? And when I was in Japan, I kept missing New York, right? And you don't appreciate things until it's gone. You don't appreciate freedom until it's gone. Same thing. And so when I left to Japan, I got to appreciate Japan more, right? So it's just unfortunately that's part of the human condition. I think it's just, you know, just like a fish, you take them out of water, they don't realize that the water is they're able to breathe because of the water. Same thing. Like when the freedom is gone, you're gonna feel it, and if you don't realize that it's happening right now, you're not going to realize it until it's too late. So I always try to advocate for people to follow their conscience, to hold the line, but the line is whatever you deem that line to be. It goes again back to your your individuality, because that is the smallest minority, as Ayn Rand said. We like to think it's Black trans women, let's say, today, but tomorrow it might be something else. And in the end of the day, what will be true till the end of time, I think, the beginning and to the end of time, and those are the root. Those what I'm looking for is what has been consistent through the entire history of mankind, or you know, what a humankind, to be politically correct, is that the smallest individual will always be the individual, right? And that is what we're trying to protect, is your individual rights. And you know, the stickers, for instance, they were started by this woman named Sophie Scholl in Munich, and her brother were handing out leaflets to warn about the Nazis. And as a result, at age 21, she was guillotined. So she was decapitated. And one of the things she'd say, and we have a sticker saying, you know, you stand, even if the world is against you, stand alone in your truth, right? I mean, I'm totally rewording that, but even if you stand, and this is the time, like living in New York City. I mean, I had a period while I was in lockdown where I said, holy crap, like I am the only person, I do not know one human being who thinks like me, right?
Well,
Not one.
it's a classic abuser, like Joe talks about. It's a classic abuser. When abuser, what do they do? They isolate you. Oh, I'm sorry, I can't go out with you, and it's because my husband is here and he wants me to stay and cook and do. You're alone. You're alone. You're alone. They've isolated. And by the way, liberals used to be the therapy-minded motherfuckers. I don't know what
I still identify as a liberal, by the way, in many ways.
All right, this is what I want to talk about too, because I forgot about what I was saying earlier. Mm-hmm. I like that you were talking about, and it's the same. I mean, that's why the show is called CONSERVATISH. Mm-hmm. The labels are part of the problem. 10 years ago, whatever conservative meant and whatever liberal meant has completely, it is, I mean, I don't know one single, and I have a lot of conservative followers and I follow a lot of conservatives. I don't know any of them who don't like gays. I'm sorry. I don't know who any of them. I might know one who like shouldn't, I don't like them getting married, but he also like, you know what I'm saying? Like the definition is not what it used to be 10 years ago. What the current day leftists, they're live action role playing a 1960s style fight for civil rights. They are cosplaying fucking civil rights. That's what they are.
I actually, in many ways, like that's a good example. In many ways, I think we're like the left and the right are in so many ways we focus on how far apart they are and how like polarized these two groups are. But in many ways, we're actually coming together, and I think things are overlapping. I've learned so much. That's the thing. Like the what kind of red pill I will, let's just say I was always really you know, passionate about education. So I saw like this, like, whoa, the CRT stuff happening from 2016, and I was extremely nervous from starting from 2016. But you know, I never really understood, like, you know. But then when Trump came to office, I was like mortified. I actually, my mom is in real estate, and I've met him many times, like growing up. And you know, in some ways, like, we're in the same circles. Like, you know, a lot of my friends went to school with Ivanka and things like that. And actually, I even did like a commercial for Ivanka Trump once. But anyways, that's beside the point. But like, it was, and back then I did have this conception that like conservatives were just racist, right? But I never met a conservative. I've never like talked to one. I never hung out with one. What I did, it was, and honestly, to be honest, like when I would go, I actually even took a road trip to go to like the flyover states, which, by the way, I think is an extremely derogatory term to call these states flyover states. But anyways, I went there to try to understand. But then I remember seeing like a mascot of Hillary, like stealing, talking about stealing emails, and I was like, well, I don't understand. I can't process this. So I actually sought them out, and I sought out conservatives to try to understand their viewpoint, and I just didn't get it. And it was actually when I was in Taiwan, I realized a lot of my Taiwanese students, they were like, Trump, your president is crazy, but I like his stance on China, right? And I said, okay, that's fair. And then during the lockdown, it kind of switched. Like all of a sudden, all my students became Trump supporters. And I even had a friend in Japan that I grew up with in Japan, and she confessed to me that she can't vote because she's not, you know, American citizen, but she's like, I would vote for Trump. And I was like, wait, what? And so that sort of also kind of started me on, like, and then it was finally just because I have one friend, and this is like, you know, people have to come out of the closet. And then I know a lot of gay people I was saying, it's harder to come out as a conservative than gay. Like a lot of my gay friends said that to me. And I said, yeah, I understand. But seriously, it was, for me, one friend who said, I'm going to vote for Trump. And I go, like, what? And then she sent me some material. And I said, but don't you think he's racist? And then I spent the time to actually listen to the entire clip. And I was like, okay. And I've interacted with Trump like as a young child. Okay. So like he probably has no recollection of me, and I've only really, you know, met him a few times. But anyways, I never had the impression he was racist. And so when I saw that on TV, I was like, oh, that's not the Trump I mean, but I do know the Trump that's egotistical, that's sharp and smart, but also kind of like sly and sneak. Like I saw like parts that I like and dislike about him, right? But I never thought of him as a racist, and that kind of always threw me off. But I was like, I don't care about politics. Like I don't care. But then what happened was all my students became Trump supporters. And then I was like, okay, explain it to me. Like, it's like my students, I'm the teacher, but they explained it to me. And I did my research, and then I kind of went in, and I was like, oh, I got, you know, and then I started to understand. And so it was thanks to my one friend, right, she lives in America, but she's not a US citizen, but my one friend, and then all my students like becoming Trump, so that I understood, like, okay. And I, to this day, and it's funny because my impression of Trump today is not very different from my impression of Trump as a child. Like, I still think he's a little egotistical, and he's crass and all those things that I like agree with the liberals on those things. But then in terms of his actual policies and the things he did, like, you know, yeah, I you know, what can you say? Like, he was right about he was definitely not woke, you know, and that I appreciated for sure. So yeah.
Ultimately, when I look back at that, he was a conduit. It's never been about, for most of the people I follow and like, it's never been about Trump.
Yeah,
it was more about who can best represent our desire to say F you to the system.
And to be honest, like, I don't like I don't trust him at all. Like, with like his stance with the vaccine makes me like, I agree that I don't like him, you know. Like, I mean, people will get upset when I say that, but like, I don't trust him personally. Like, I just don't trust
Right.
Yeah, I never did. I never did, and I still don't. But in terms of like with Biden and Trump, I was like, okay, like it's like, what else can, and because they both supported the vaccine. I mean, and ultimately, again, like I'm standing alone in the, and maybe as like, you know, kind of taking a book, like a note from Sophie Scholl, but it's like I'm gonna just stand on what I believe, what my convictions are. Um, it's your body. You get to decide what goes in it, even if it's completely, innocent, like a cookie. Like even if it's like, eat this cookie. It's good for you. It's really tastes really good. It's like you have the right to say no. I don't want to eat the cookie. Just like you have the same, same thing with this vaccine. And I have a student right now who almost died, and her doctors cannot. Her saying you cannot take this vaccine. You will die if you get this vaccine. And her father is also like a COVID researcher. Like I learned a lot about COVID through these experts. Like I just so happened had students, a student whose father is like a leading like doctor and researcher in these kind of field, and it has access to the top virologists. And even he says, I don't trust it and I don't feel it's ready. And he took it himself. He said, I wouldn't have taken it if it wasn't coerced. And now that his daughter is sick, he can't, she literally will die if she takes it. And at least according to her, to the family. And she's saying, I cannot hang out with my friends anymore, right? Like I can't. Even even in the hospital when she was, the family thought she was going to die, they didn't let her see her brother because her brother wasn't vaccinated, her younger brother. So it's and I didn't even understand the psychological ramifications until I went to Texas yesterday. I came back from Texas yesterday, and I realized, oh my God, like I didn't even realize how these masks are affecting me as an individual in New York City. Like how, like I understand it when when people are yelling and screaming at me and about my beliefs, but then just to be able to see this, I was shocked that I got so emotional about that. And a friend of mine the other actually had the same reaction. We went to upstate New York to go to a restaurant, and it was literally like he sat down and he was in tears because he's like, wow, I get to sit in a restaurant. Like it seems like a small thing, but for people in New York, it's real. It's a privilege to go inside. And now it's getting colder and colder. God knows what's going to happen when that, we're not going to
Right.
be we're going to be told to go sit outside, and it's too cold to sit outside. It's literally people can die. Like if you're outside too long, you're in the dead of winter of New York City, you could die. Like it is damn. I mean, it's not as cold as like maybe like Minnesota and other places, but it is cold enough. And I think it's just so inhumane to tell somebody, and especially like I've shot a video of like rats and cockroaches all over these outdoor shacks as restaurant that they want us to eat in. It's completely inhumane. And I just don't think human beings should be treated, and human beings are being treated like animals, like dirt, like diseased animals. And I actually, even recently, a friend of mine sent me this clip of this woman spraying Lysol at him. So it's real, and it's coming for all of us if we don't hold the line. And again, that line, whatever that line is, that's for you to decide where it is. But don't think that your voice is not important. I mean, I told you, like one friend was I had one friend who confessed that she wanted to vote for Trump even though she can't. And that was for me enough to like search and I was someone who's, was someone who actively looked for that as well, but I couldn't find it. And you could be that one person that could open somebody's eyes. And I think that we're going through a period of what is it? And I'm not really religious, but what is it called when you have to, what is it called? When I just had it, and it's like to confess, not confess, but this repentance. Yeah. A
Okay.
period of like, I think it's happening. Like, I know maybe it's, well, I feel like it's happening because we came back from Australia,
San Antonio.
and San Antonio from Texas yesterday. And my boyfriend went to a very, very woke college called Evergreen. I don't know if you know what happened with Evergreen. Okay, so those who don't know about Evergreen, I would suggest you look up Brett Weinstein and his work. There's actually a great YouTube video documentary
Mhm.
about Brett Weinstein and Evergreen that everyone should check out. But anyways, he was, like I said, he was very outspoken, and he would create these videos about the stolen election, about COVID, and terrain theory, all these things, right? And and of course, like, everybody that he knew shunned him, and everybody and nobody in Evergreen really, like, they thought he was nuts, right? And he and then this guy all of a sudden out of the blue said, like, "Hey, I'm in New York, you want to hang out?" And he got a little nervous. He's like, "Oh," he's like, "I don't know if I should, I just tell him we're still in Texas, because like we just got back yesterday and he wanted to hang out with us." And I'm just like, we maybe we can red pill him a little bit. He's like, "Oh, okay, okay, we'll do,"
Mhm.
And he came, and he was already like, he was like, "I
Yeah.
thought you were crazy, but
Mhm.
I watched some of your videos,
Mhm.
and that's just a testament that what you're doing works." Because I did watch what you shared, and I realized you're right. And now he's like, even though he's vaccinated, he said, he was actually showing us videos, which I thought was fascinating, of vaccinated only venues where there, and so I didn't even think of this until yesterday. But he went to see, like, I think Phantom of the Opera or something. Oh no, he went to see the Book of Mormon, and he said he was sitting there. It's all that everyone has to be vaccinated to get in. But he says even when you're in there, there's like, it's like, he's like, it's like going to a boxing match and seeing like these big boards, and it says masks up, right? And they're everywhere, and they're being hired, they're being given money to hold up these signs to make sure everyone in that theater has their mask up. So you think you could take a shot and you're free? You're not free.
Yeah.
You're still a slave. So it's a period of repentance. It's a period where either they get it or they don't. And if they don't get it, it's going to be too late for them. And unfortunately, we cannot save them. As much as I want to save everybody, but we cannot do that. Um, so be that person for somebody, and every single human being listening to this can save a life. And I know that sounds like really dramatic, but those who really understand where this is headed, that's how it ends. Tired. That's what it ends when your voice is taken away. Your life is going to be taken away. And that's the progression. And of course, it seems crazy for people who don't see it, but from my standpoint, what I see is we're headed towards a path towards your own destruction if you don't stand up. And we don't have enough time. Um, like I spoke at a Jewish convention a few weeks ago, few months ago. I don't even, everything's kind of colliding into one, but they were split up into male, female, right? That's the Jewish custom to separate the men and the women. And I said, like, you think, like, and I told them about what IBM and what I said earlier. But I mean, this movement is going to take away your ability to even sit like this. Like, this is it. It infiltrates. It's like an ideological subversion. Everyone should check out Yuri Bezmenov. I know if you're listening to this, you probably know who he is. But that's the tactic that is being used. The Chinese use it. It's divide and conquer. It's what we call Sun Tzu Bing Fa, right? Which is Sun Tzu's art of war. It's you don't kill the enemy, or you don't defeat the enemy with bullets and knives and all these things anymore. It's through the mind. There's a war being raged on your mind, and if you don't see what's being done to you, you're going down a road of slavery and your own demise. And so the process is to wake people up. The
Yeah.
process is to be courageous, because it is contagious, as one of our stickers say. And I'm saying, and when I say that, I say it to myself as well, because I'm surrounded by people who I think are way more courageous than I am. So I was shocked when people started like calling me courageous, because I'm like, I'm nothing in comparison to my friends. And so to find that community, to find like-minded people, to know that no matter where you are, you could be in the most like, you know, liberal, progressive place in the world, like New York. There is a community there that think like you. We have also, if you want to get involved in stickering, please join Telegram. We have an NYC White Rose chat group, which you can search for. That particular group I really like, because you could actually interact, and you could ask even technical questions on how to get started printing, how to, like, oh, my printer broke, what happened, right? Like, people will respond to you and try to, you know, help you. So you know, with this new platform that I've been given, I'm trying to get other people to get involved in stickering, get involved and find, like, everyone has to figure out what they're talented in and use it for this movement.
I call it Super Friends. Remember the Super Friends? So Super Friends is this cartoon from the 70s. It was where it's Superman, Aquaman, like a bunch of different, you know, Marvel. And you wouldn't ask Aquaman to scale a tall building in a single bound, and you wouldn't ask Superman to talk to the dolphins. We all have our different strengths. Some people, why I wanted to talk to you is because your boots on the ground. You know, is somebody who's willing to be like, I'm taking this down, I'm doing this, fuck that sticker, blah, blah, blah. As I wanted to, I like everybody. And I've had people, you know, I had Jen Rivera a few weeks ago on, you know, whatever that thing that's speaking to you, that's saying, oh, I'm good at this and I think I could be useful here, do it. But again, just like you're saying, I would give a shout out to those who are thinking like, oh, I can't speak up. Like, okay, well, I've already sacrificed a lot. You've sacrificed, you know, more. You've actually, you know, faced potential legal consequences. We're facing actual consequences for this. Are the consequences we're facing, like, do we have less to lose than you, everybody? I don't think that's true. I think we have the same amount. It's just that we've looked at what we could lose, or the consequences that we face for speaking up versus the consequences that we face for not speaking up. And those are worse. Those are dire. Those are more potent and hurtful. So you have to kind of sit in your own belly and be like, well, someone might get mad at me at work. Suck it up, man. Suck it the fuck up.
Right. It's tough. I mean, it's like, as someone, like I was saying, what we were saying, talking about earlier, as an Asian person, this is very much outside of my comfort zone. Like, I am someone who is very agreeable. I don't like to, you know, go against the grain at all. But if you, it's, again, it's like, I have to live with myself in the end of the day. It's my conscience that's screaming at me. And I just don't betray yourself is what I was just talking to a friend of mine, who, you know, we invite him to rallies. You know, his entire family is vaccinated. He doesn't want to get vaccinated himself, but he's like, I don't, this is for school, for my future. I feel like I need to do it. But I said, okay, I'm not telling you to do anything, but just do what is in your heart of hearts, and just don't betray yourself, because you're going to live with that guilt for the rest of your life. So yeah, I mean, there's so much that we can do. Like, I have so many different ideas now. Now it's like I have this idea, well, a lot of ideas, but I mean, I just created this live this morning because I mean, everyone's focused, I think, on like making money, right? And I think that's sort of also, and of course I'm tempted by, who isn't tempted by money, right? But I am doing these stickers donation based, so that, because the purpose is to get the stickers to as many places as possible, not to make money. And whatever donations that come in goes back into the stickers. And that has surprisingly, like, people, I mean, well, not people have been so generous, and it more than covers the cost of the shipping and the rolls and all that. And the stickers are super cheap to make. They're pennies a piece.
Right.
And people are now saying they want t-shirts. So I'm like, okay, I want to do t-shirts, but
Expensive.
again, like, how do I do it in a way that aligns with our values and not the freaking old system that we've been chained to, and this rat race we're all trying to get out of, right? So
especially because what that means is it can be infiltrated, like many movements have been, by sharks
Right.
and people who take advantage. you know?
And that desire for money is a human, like that's a very human kind of. Greed is one of the seven deadly sins, right? So I'm trying to be I really want to keep that in check. And so that's why the donation based model has been very good for that, because it's like, this is not you didn't do anything. This is the money is going to go back into the movement. And so with this t-shirt now, with these t-shirts that people want me to make, which I haven't started, I'm going to research and look into getting the t-shirts made in the most American, most patriotic way possible. Who are the people holding the line? Who are the people that are still hiring people regardless of these mandates? Those are the people I'm going to work with, and those are the people I'm going to buy the t-shirt or get t-shirts from, and I'm going to figure out a way again to like get these people to wear it. And that's the thing. Like, I spent a long time putting the mask on because I didn't want to be seen, but also because I didn't want to rock the boat. Um, Now it's like we have no time for that anymore. If you are if you want to wear the mask, then wear the mask. But if you feel like you're playing along when you're wearing that mask, do, like, again, check back with your conscience. And if you know your heart of hearts is saying, I'm wearing this mask only to play along, then take the damn thing off, because you have to, and then it's not good it's eroding your soul. This is, I know it sounds like crazy, like it seems dramatic, but that's what going to Texas taught me. Being able to live normally and be treated normally, that, like, and this is supposed all, and I was like the only Asian there. Okay, I had not one racist interaction at all. Okay, I went to Reawaken America tour or something like that, and there were, I mean, my friend Joe, who's black, said she saw one Asian I did think saw one Asian, and then she saw like maybe a few black people, majority white. They were all the sweetest, kindest, most loving people. I mean, literally, they brought me to tears. They prayed for me. I mean, that's the other thing. It's a bit of a culture shock, Texas, as someone who grew up in New York, like, to see people who put God first. That's not something I was raised with. I was raised by atheists. So uh, it's a little strange in the beginning, but I'll tell you this much. When I felt alone, when I felt like, oh my God, I'm probably the only person in New York City who thinks the way I think, um, I went to church for the first time, because I thought, okay, maybe this is the only safe haven where I can actually share my ideas in a way and they won't attack me. And so I did go to church, but then that church is, I stopped going to that church when I mean, they're very sweet people, and I love them all to death. And I don't yeah, well, anyways, but the moment when they were like, you have to wear, if you're not vaccinated, you have to wear a mask to go to service. I said, I don't, I can't, that goes against, and then, people will say, you have to put God first. And you saying, oh, like, I don't think that's right. And that puts, maybe yourself first. I mean, that's kind of, that's sort of the kind of these conversations I had a lot with myself growing up with, my cultural background. But I put, I said, no, I'm going to put myself first, and I'm not going to put on a mask. And I did put on a mask for a long time with them. But then I realized that this movement was growing, and that the injustices were also growing alongside it, and the misunderstanding and the confusion was just going out of control. And I just felt like compelled to leave going to church, even though I got a lot out of it. I got a lot of, like, just, it felt very cleansing for me going to church. And even though I might not identify as a Christian right or today, I am deeply I deeply admire and look, and I'm studying the Bible. I'm, like, for the first time, like, really looking into, like, a lot of the things that didn't make sense actually make sense to me, right? So, I'm kind of going through that, like, that is very weird and foreign for me as a New Yorker. But when I was in Texas, it was like, I was like a little like, whoa, this is a lot for me. And but then I felt very, like, loved and held and nurtured and taken care of, and I felt complete. And as much as these people seemed so foreign to me, I felt so at home. And yeah, it definitely was an experience that I'll take with me for the rest of my life. And I'm just so indebted and grateful to Texas now for like showing me that, you know. So
now leftists on the fence, imagine the feeling that she just described. Have you ever felt that in a space full of leftists?
well,
no,
no, like
in the most Brooklyn. Listen, before I moved to New York 2 years ago, I lived in the Bay Area. Okay.
Yeah.
Anywhere when I first moved, I was scoping out Brooklyn.
Yeah.
About 2 years ago, before I moved, I scoped out Brooklyn. I was like, I went into this coffee shop in Williamsburg. I'm like, why do I feel this weird judgy feeling here? I'm like, oh, this is like Berkeley. Okay, now I get it. Like, because
Right.
that's the feeling. It's this feeling of, oh, you don't know how to order right. Oh, you don't have oat milk. Oh, you don't did it. Oh, you have the wrong T-shirt. Oh, you have the wrong. You don't listen to the right band. It's insidious abuse. Leftists are fucking abusive, and
it was crazy.
Felt welcoming, comforted, lifted up, listened to.
I'm seriously like, it's really like their real colors are really shining. Like when I went to the did this post office sit-in. We should really edit the more of the interactions that happened. I mean, the video is up there, but there was an interaction that was there. I'm sure it's in another one of our cameras, but the guy there called us poor for having an older iPhone model. He says, "Oh, you guys need to get a job." And you guys need to get a job. And we're like, we have a job. And then one of my friends stepped in and said, well, a lot of us are going to lose our jobs because of people like you. And he goes, you guys have old iPhone models. You guys are poor. I mean, like, what kind of argument is that? You know, it just, I think everything things will come to light. I think that's what I've also been trying to teach Pinocchio. I'm doing a lot of like random things, I know, but Pinocchio is one of the things that they teach is that, you know, aside from what I said about the conscience and everything is, and living by your conscience is you have to, you know, you really got to, what was I'm losing my train of thought. I have so many things.
The true color showing.
Oh yeah. So yeah, the you know, the iconic moment was when his nose started growing, right? It's like our nose doesn't grow in nature, right? Like it doesn't grow when we tell a lie. What is that saying? Why is it still such an iconic moment? And even our emojis, right? On our cell phones have the emoji with the long nose to symbolize the lie. It's because in nature, a lie grows and grows until it becomes as obvious as the nose on your face. Like that's what I think of Bernie Madoff, right? It's just like you can hold a lie long for a certain amount of time, but it becomes too big that it all collapses. Like it becomes too obvious. And I think this is sort of what's happening here is we know we're being lied to. Like I actually started really you could also say my red pill moment was during the Democratic debates, because I was totally ready to vote for a Democrat. And I was really looking at, I think we had a lot of very interesting candidates, like whether it was a Tulsi or Yang, right? Which even though I didn't like Yang, I thought, okay, he sounds like a modern day politician. Like the things he's saying about, you know, a new way of doing like, why do we use GDP only to decide on the health of a nation, right? He had at least different ideas, new ideas, right? And even though I didn't agree with everything he was saying, like I could appreciate that he was thinking in the future. With Bernie, like I also was not a huge Bernie fan, but I knew he was the most popular, like he was clearly popular. So it kind of boggled my mind that they ended up with Biden, right? And so again, like there's a lot of like if you are honest with yourself, even if you don't agree with me, like there's something going on. There's something that's not right. I feel like I smelled a rat a long time ago. But then what's the source of the corruption is what we're all trying to figure out. And I'm not gonna say I'm like 100% sure I know who it is. Like I know some people are saying it's the Rothschilds, it's the Chinese. I know I've witnessed China, right? So I can only talk from that perspective. Like I am, you know, the Rockefellers, whatever. Like there's all these, and that's why we're all deemed conspiracy theorists, because at the end of the day, we don't 100% know everything. right? And so we're all speculating here, but hopefully the truth will come to light. And I think that in nature, like I think that if I think if we orient ourselves properly in the universe, we will, nature will reward us, or other people may call that God. And I think that's how we win the war, by shining the light, doing our, and as Curtis Orwell, one of my freedom fighter friends say, like we have to do our own shadow work. Meaning, which is, I know is a hippy dippy type of thing to say, but like we are all like deeply imperfect, and I am trying to figure out, I'm trying to figure it out. I'm trying to do the right thing. I might be doing the wrong thing in many times. I don't know, but I have the volition. I'm trying to orient myself properly. And I think that's the only way for nature to actually come to your aid and help you. So once again, I think my overall message is, like, follow your conscience, tell the truth, and orient yourself properly in the universe, and God, the universe will, I think, will come to your aid. So
Amen.
that's it. Yeah.
Meditate, everybody. Meditate,
Oh
everybody.
yeah, that's great too.
Now, before we sign off, I also wanted to just hear a quick shout out for Saturday.
Oh yes, we're doing a rally this Saturday. I
think it's a huge one.
What?
Saturday, November 20th, everybody.
Yes. So please show up to that. It's called Light for Liberty. We're at 12 o'clock. We're going to have a little, music from the Africa Forest Dance at Central Park West at 65th Street. And at 1:30, the rally will start, and we're going to march to Foley Square, and then end 5 o'clock for the candlelight procession. There's a lot of things happening. You don't have to be there for all of it. I probably won't even be there for all of it. I usually come in the beginning of the rallies. I try to stay as long as I can. Now it's getting cold. We're trying to figure out different ways to manage this. You can always also DM me on Instagram, and I'll send them to you free of charge. Again, we just ask you pay for the shipping, which is now $8.70. It's going to go down to $7.95 after Christmas, and we send as much as we can in there. So it's like around 1,000 to 1,500 stickers. Everything's donation based. So whatever extra you want to give me above the $8.70 will go back into the movement. Okay, so it is probably the cheapest way to get, I mean, unless you want to create stickers yourself. And also I teach that too. I try to, I've been handing out even printers to some people who are really serious about, making the stickers and handing them out. And I'm actually happy. And this is also something I just want to throw in there. Like, if other people want to create like what I'm doing, like handing out stickers, I don't think of it as competition. I think of it as more people spreading the message. So don't, feel that you shouldn't create your own sticker booth yourself. Do it. Like, totally, like, hand out as many stickers as you can. That's the idea, right? So get started stickering. Create stickers yourself, create a sticker booth, figure out a way to get these things far and wide, because there are so many people who come up to me and said, oh my God, I'm so excited. I saw a sticker that I didn't stick up there. And it makes me feel like I'm not the only person, in my hometown doing this and feeling and thinking the way I think. So even one little sticker can, and I do have, and I've had stories where people feel like people have gotten off the line. They're about to get vaccinated and they saw the sticker and they got offline. So we have stories like that. I mean, even though it seems like a minuscule little thing, these things, if we the people come together, use our talents for good, for creating harmony and unity amongst both sides. Don't ever. I think the biggest lie our society tells us is that you are dispensable, that you are not unique, that you can be replaced by whether another person or a machine. That is not true. You are, every single one of us has a purpose. It's your job to figure out what that is. So.
Amen. Thank you so much. Make sure you subscribe, everybody, and follow me on Instagram, Peter_Feliciano, after you follow Freedom Fighters International. And I'm also on TikTok for now at Peter_Feliciano, but the Chinese are going to get it. Come on, let's be real. Lastly, also we're going to do another no ad dollar day. I'll tell you about this too, as far as taking it offline. I don't know if I told you about it before, but no ad dollar day is where a bunch of us collectively get off of social media for an entire 24 hours. So for 24 hours, because we can't get into the room with Mark Zuckerberg to be like, no, we actually want free speech, Mark. So in order for us to pull the trigger on, you know, making our voices heard, we take away their ad dollars, we take away their traffic, so they can't go, hey, Target, pay us more money. Look at how many eyes we got. We collectively for a whole day take off of all social media. We're doing it again on the first Tuesday of December, which is the 7th. So December 7th, no ad dollar day. And I may create a noaddollarday.org. You might see that soon. So
well, definitely DM me about that. I definitely would be interested in that.
Yeah, we've done 2 so far. Pretty cool. So, all right, I'll go ahead and stop the recording now. Thank you, everybody.